What happened behind the scenes of the Andy Griffith Show? The actress who played Ellie Walker, Elinor Donahue, shares the shocking truth about the Andy Griffith Show. From her unexpected departure to candid experiences on set, Elinor reveals what fans never knew about this beloved classic. Elinor's arrival at Mayberry. Elinor Donahue's journey to the Andy Griffith Show began with great anticipation. Already a familiar face to audiences, she was best known for her role as Betty Anderson on Father Knows Best. Her success on that show made her a sought-after talent, and the producers of The Andy Griffith Show saw her as the perfect fit for the role of Ellie Walker, a smart and charming pharmacist who would bring a fresh dynamic to Mayberry. When Elinor received the offer to join the cast, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Here was a chance to transition from her teenage role into a more mature character on a show that promised to be a hit. The producers believed that her presence would not only bring a new dimension to the series, but also attract a wider audience. For Elinor, this was an opportunity to step into a different light and showcase her versatility as an actress. Her character, Ellie Walker, was introduced as a potential love interest for Sheriff Andy Taylor, played by Andy Griffith. Elinor was thrilled at the idea of playing a woman who was both intelligent and independent, a departure from the typical female characters of that era. She hoped that Ellie would be a strong addition to the show, offering humor, warmth, and a bit of romance to balance the small-town charm of Mayberry. Initially, everything seemed promising. The cast and crew welcomed her with open arms. Andy Griffith, the show's lead and driving force, appeared supportive and eager to see how her character would develop. Elinor believed that her character would grow into a central figure in the series, bringing out new sides of Andy's character and adding depth to the show's storylines. However, it didn't take long for things to take an unexpected turn. Even with her initial enthusiasm, Elinor soon sensed that the writers were struggling to find a place for Ellie Walker in the script. The character that had seemed so promising began to feel more like an afterthought. Lines she had hoped to deliver were suddenly being reassigned to other actors, particularly to Don Knotts, whose character, Barney Fife, was quickly becoming a fan favorite. But her excitement soon turned into confusion. The struggles with script writing. Once the cameras started rolling, Elinor Donahue quickly realized that her role on The Andy Griffith Show wasn't shaping up as she had hoped. The writing team seemed uncertain about how to develop her character, Ellie Walker. The initial excitement surrounding her arrival began to fade as it became clear that Ellie was not the priority in the script-writing process. Instead of becoming a strong, independent figure in Mayberry, Ellie was often left in the background. Scenes that were meant to highlight her character's wit and charm were either cut or rewritten. To her dismay, many of the lines originally intended for Ellie ended up being given to other characters, especially Don Knotts, who played Barney Fife. The show's writers found Barney's comedic timing perfect for the punchlines, and gradually, more and more of the best lines were handed over to him. Elinor watched as her character's presence diminished. She had signed on to bring a new flavor to the series, but it felt like Ellie was being pushed aside. Each time she came to the set, she hoped for a script that would allow her character to shine, but instead, she found herself delivering fewer lines and appearing in fewer scenes. The producers seemed unsure about how to blend Ellie's character into the quirky, tight-knit world of Mayberry. The constant changes and adjustments took a toll on Elinor's confidence. She felt like an outsider, struggling to make her mark, while the writers kept reshaping her role. She had come from a successful run on Father Knows Best, where her character was central, only to find herself on a show where her place was uncertain. The lack of consistency and direction made it difficult for her to connect with her character or the storyline. On set, she did her best to stay positive and professional, But the growing sense of frustration was hard to ignore. Elinor began to feel that she was not being given the chance to prove herself. The writing team seemed to favor the characters who had already established their place in the show's humor and heart, like Andy and Barney, leaving little room for Ellie to develop. Was this just the beginning of her struggles? Andy Griffith. But, behind the scenes, things weren't quite as harmonious. While Andy was friendly and polite, there seemed to be a distance between him and Elinor that never quite closed. They didn't share the easy rapport off-camera that was expected, and it soon became apparent that their connection was limited to their scripted interactions. Andy Griffith, as the star and one of the key decision-makers on the show, had a significant influence over the creative direction. This included deciding which lines and moments would stay in the script and which would not. As the show progressed, it became clear that Andy had his ideas about which lines suited his co-stars best. He often suggested changes that would see Ellie's lines redistributed, particularly to Don Knotts, whose comic timing and unique character were gaining more attention with each episode. Elinor found herself in a tricky position. She admired Andy's talent and leadership, but she couldn't ignore the fact that her character was becoming less significant. Andy would often make decisions on the fly, moving her lines to other actors to create the scenes he envisioned. These changes were frequent, leaving Elinor with little room to develop Ellie's character in the way she had hoped. It wasn't personal. Andy was known to be a professional and focused, but his vision for the show seemed to favor other characters. Even when the scripts hinted at a romantic spark between Andy Taylor and Ellie Walker, the moments were brief and lacked depth. Andy seemed more comfortable playing the solo hero of Mayberry than engaging in a full-fledged on-screen romance. The writers, too, seemed to struggle with finding the balance, leading to many scenes being cut or altered to keep the focus on the more established characters. But why did Andy always seem to favor others? Personal challenges behind the scenes. Behind the cheerful facade of the Andy Griffith Show, Elinor Donahue faced significant personal struggles that few knew about. She had recently gone through a difficult divorce and was now a single mother trying to balance her responsibilities at home with the demands of her career. The stress of this new reality weighed heavily on her, affecting both her mood and her ability to fully immerse herself in her role. The emotional toll of her divorce was immense. Elinor was still processing the end of her marriage while stepping into a new job with high expectations. As she tried to adjust to life as a single parent, she found it hard to maintain the focus and energy needed on set. Every day presented new challenges, and she often found herself feeling overwhelmed, caught between the pressures of motherhood and the uncertainties of her career in Mayberry. Adding to her difficulties was the lack of support from the crew. While some of her co-stars were friendly, there wasn't much understanding or empathy extended toward her situation. The atmosphere on set could be isolating. Elinor felt like an outsider, struggling not just with the role she was given, but also with the realities of her personal life. She found little comfort or camaraderie among the cast and crew, who were already deeply bonded and focused on the show's success. And then, a turning point came. Conversations with Don Knotts. During her time on The Andy Griffith Show, Elinor Donahue found an unexpected ally in Don Knotts. While the atmosphere on set could sometimes feel isolating, Don was always there with a warm smile and a kind word. The two developed a genuine friendship that extended beyond their time in front of the camera. Don was not just a colleague. He became a trusted confidant who understood the ups and downs she was facing. Elinor often found comfort in Don's easygoing nature. He had a way of lightening the mood, even on the most challenging days. Whether it was a joke during a break or a simple chat between takes, Don always seemed to know how to make her feel at ease. He understood the difficulties she was going through, both on and off the set, and he offered a listening ear whenever she needed it. One day, after another frustrating rehearsal where most of her lines had been reassigned, Elinor found herself feeling particularly low. Don noticed her mood and gently pulled her aside. He reassured her that she wasn't alone in her struggles and that he admired her strength in facing them. He shared his own experiences, admitting that he, too, had faced uncertainty in his career. His words were a balm to Elinor's troubled heart, providing her with a sense of comfort that she hadn't felt in a long time. Their off-screen interactions often involved sharing stories and laughter. Don would recount his days as a stand-up comedian, and Elinor would talk about her time on other shows. They bonded over their shared love for comedy and acting, and their conversations often stretched long after the cameras had stopped rolling. Don had a unique ability to make Elinor feel valued, even when the scripts seemed to suggest otherwise. Don also supported her professionally, encouraging her to hold her ground and not lose hope. He would often remind her of her talent and worth, boosting her confidence when it seemed like everyone else had forgotten. His support was not just limited to words. He often went out of his way to make her feel included, ensuring that she felt like a part of the team, even with the setbacks she faced. But even Don couldn't change what was about to happen next. The decision to leave the show. The decision to leave the Andy Griffith Show was not easy for Elinor Donahue. She had joined the cast with high hopes, expecting to be a key player in the beloved town of Mayberry. But as the months went by, it became clear that her character, Ellie Walker, was not getting the attention or development she had anticipated. She felt increasingly underutilized, as if her talents were being wasted. The frustration of watching her role diminish with each script left her feeling unappreciated and sidelined. Elinor struggled with these feelings for a while, hoping things might change. She had numerous conversations with the show's writers and producers, but nothing seemed to improve. Despite her efforts, the creative team continued to favor other characters, leaving Ellie's character with little to do. It was a tough realization for Elinor, who had hoped to make a real impact on the show. Finally, after much consideration, Elinor decided that it was time to move on. She knew she couldn't keep waiting for things to improve while her career stalled. Leaving a popular show like The Andy Griffith Show was a risk, but Elinor felt she had no other choice. She wanted to find roles where her skills would be appreciated and where she could truly shine. The decision was not made lightly. It was a culmination of many months of feeling like an outsider, of waiting for her character to have a moment that never came. When she informed the producers of her decision, they were disappointed, but not entirely surprised. They knew Elinor was unhappy with how things were progressing. However, they didn't make much effort to convince her to stay. Instead, they allowed her departure to be a quiet one, without much fanfare or discussion. Elinor's exit was handled professionally, but it lacked the warmth or appreciation she had hoped for. It felt more like an agreement to part ways than a true farewell. What did Andy think of her departure? Andy Griffith's reaction to her exit. When Elinor Donahue decided to leave the Andy Griffith Show, Andy Griffith had mixed feelings about her departure. As the lead actor and a creative force behind the show, Andy was well aware of the issues Elinor had faced. He knew that the writers had struggled to find the right place for her character, Ellie Walker, and that she felt underutilized. While Andy understood her reasons, he couldn't help but feel a sense of regret over how things had turned out. In interviews years later, Andy reflected on the situation with a hint of remorse. He acknowledged that the show had failed to properly develop Ellie's character. He admitted that the writers hadn't quite known how to integrate her into the tight-knit dynamic of Mayberry, which was already dominated by well-loved characters like Andy Taylor and Barney Fife. Andy expressed regret that they hadn't done more to give Elinor the opportunities she deserved. He felt that, with a different approach, Ellie Walker could have been a more substantial and memorable part of the series. Andy's regret wasn't just professional, it was also personal. He valued his working relationship with Elinor and respected her as an actress. He admired her professionalism and understood the challenges she faced both on and off the set. Her departure was a reminder of the difficulties in balancing creative vision with the needs and talents of the cast. Though he didn't outwardly express disappointment at the time, it was clear that he wished things had gone differently. The news of Elinor's exit was met with varied reactions from the rest of the cast. Don Knotts, who had developed a close friendship with Elinor, was saddened by her departure. He knew how much she had struggled with her limited role and had tried to offer his support whenever he could. For Don, her leaving was a loss, both personally and for the show. He believed that Elinor had brought something unique to the series, and he regretted that her potential was never fully realized. Other cast members understood why Elinor chose to move on, even if they didn't voice their thoughts openly. They respected her decision and recognized that the show's focus had shifted away from her character. In the end, her departure was seen as a natural outcome of a situation that simply hadn't worked out as planned. But Elinor's journey didn't end there. Elinor's life and career after Mayberry. After leaving the Andy Griffith Show, Elinor Donahue's career took a different path, but it was far from over. She continued to pursue roles that would allow her to show her range as an actress. It wasn't long before she found herself back in the spotlight, taking on new challenges and proving her strength in the entertainment industry. Elinor moved on to appear in several popular TV shows throughout the 1960s and 1970s. She landed a recurring role on The Odd Couple, where she played Miriam Welby, the love interest of Felix Unger, played by Tony Randall. Her performance on the show was well received, and it marked a significant step in rebuilding her career after her time in Mayberry. This role showed that she could hold her own in comedy, and it reintroduced her to audiences who had known her from her earlier work. In addition to The Odd Couple, Elinor also made guest appearances on numerous television series, such as Star Trek, The Flying Nun, and Marcus Welby, M.D. Each of these roles showcased her versatility, allowing her to explore different genres and characters. She proved time and again that she was more than capable of delivering strong performances, regardless of the setting. Her career continued to flourish in the 1980s and 1990s, with recurring roles on popular shows like Days of Our Lives and Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. These opportunities allowed her to explore dramatic roles, adding depth and variety to her acting portfolio. Elinor enjoyed a steady stream of work that kept her in the public eye and reminded audiences of her talent. Looking back, Elinor has spoken openly about her decision to leave the Andy Griffith Show. She admits it was a tough choice, but one she felt was necessary for her personal growth and professional journey. Elinor has no regrets about stepping away when she did. She felt it was important to seek roles that challenged her and allowed her to grow as an artist. Her willingness to take risks paid off, leading to a fulfilling and varied career. Elinor Donahue's story shines a light on the complexities of working on a beloved TV classic and the personal challenges she faced behind the scenes. Her journey shows the ups and downs of life in Hollywood, both on-screen and off. If you want to hear more untold stories from the stars of your favorite shows, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for updates on our latest videos.